So I hope everyone is doing well. This evening I just marked our sort of reading and listening for understanding assignment, and not everything was submitted. So if you did it, check your mark. If you don't have a mark, it's because you didn't send anything in, and please do that ASAP. So also for Tuesday, the 7th, which is our first scheduled class after school reopens, try Google Meets Hangouts. You can get it on your phone or your tablet. You can also get it through Academic Workspace in the Google Apps tab, or just go to meet.google.com and use your TDSB login information. And I'll post sort of the information for the first class there. Maybe even try it out and invite another friend to practice some of the create a meeting, invite someone to a meeting, practice some of that before school starts. Okay, so the most recent business film that I watched on Netflix during this time off was called The China Hustle, and it's a finance documentary, and it goes along the lines of lack of regulation, and it's about reverse takeovers. I guess I mentioned it. Just when you're investing, there's a lot of things to be aware of, and although there's supposed to be the government regulation of the financial markets to encourage everyone to be truthful, that's not always the case. Reverse takeover is basically a company that's listed in North America, probably in the United States, has ceased operating, but it's still listed on the stock exchange, so it has an active ticker. So it doesn't have to meet the listing criteria, it just has to reactivate sort of the ticker that was previously traded. And so currently it's like a company that went out of business, or a mining company that the claim did not work out. And so what they do is they then assume all the assets of a Chinese company, like a Chinese paper company or a Chinese tech company, rename themselves, and then start trading again. But the issue that comes up is there's very little oversight of these Chinese companies. First of all, if there's any fraud committed, the person's in another country, and it's very difficult to prosecute them or hold them accountable. And then it's also, tough to get good information. One company, they actually had a private investigator pretend to be a tea salesman to enter a factory and ask how many people were working there so they could give out free samples, because it was purported to be a bustling paper company, but it turned out it didn't have a lot of workers. So when he asked the person at the door, how many people work here, I'd like to give them free tea, the person said, oh, it's just a handful of people. And it wasn't nearly enough to sort of match the sales that they were, supposed to have. And then as the documentary continues, people try to sound the alarm, like has happened a few times before. The SEC and government regulators and the US Congress doesn't listen, and then it turns out that many of these companies are fraudulent, and a lot of blue-collar workers and pension funds lose money. Because in 2009, 2010, 2011, people were very eager to invest in China. They weren't really thinking straight. They thought it was the next big thing, and they didn't do their due diligence. And so these shady companies would, do a reverse takeover, get traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They'd get some people to push it, and then, they would increase in value in a very, very short amount of time. And a few people were burned because they didn't do their due diligence trying to look into this. I don't know how much you care about financial documentaries. But was a bit of a new one. It's on Netflix, called The China Hustle. And just when you are investing, do your best to look at those financial statements, diversify your portfolio so you're not relying on just one company, and do your best. Anyways, we'll talk today about how to use Google Meets and how you can use it to collaborate for the upcoming group case study. I thought today, being the Friday before the break, we'd talk about how working from home can be done productively so that you can have good habits and succeed here. What I think will happen is, as a result of this crisis, more people will be flexible about working at home or in a third space, and there will be more online meetings, shorter check-ins, perhaps more blended learning in the school system. So it's incumbent upon you to adapt to it. Perhaps I'm lecturing a bit, but it's kind of your job. Whether you succeed in the rest of the year and all of your courses is going to be up to you. You won't be your friends, won't be your teachers, won't be your parents, it'll be how much you put into this. And if you're willing to put the time in, I think a lot of students will do really well. If you're going to take it easy, you might not get the marks that you want. So the expectation is that everyone should be doing at least 1.5 hours per week in their courses in terms of following lessons and doing work. And I'd say that's probably the low end of things, because if you really wanted to do well, you're not just going to do 45 minutes twice a week. But some tips that you can maybe work on the weekend, and then it'll help you get ready to go next week. So having a good workspace, it should be clean and not cluttered. If there's natural light, that can make you feel a bit better. Removing distractions. One of my friends who coached the Canadian national track team was having an issue with some of their Olympic athletes not doing well in university because they always had their phone out, and it was a matter of just putting the phone in the desk drawer so that it was out of sight. If you have your phone out on your workspace, you're probably going to want to check it, and you probably won't be doing your best. Do leave room to complete notes or write things down or make a note of what needs to be done later. Here would be an example of a good workspace. There's a nice chair, things are clean, there's some windows, there's some room for note taking, and if you can sort of set up your work area for success, I think you'll be doing a lot better. What else? It's recommended that you have a routine. Just sort of treat it like a school day. I know that's boring. A lot of stuff for succeeding in business is boring, and the reason some people are paid a lot of money is because they're willing to do the boring work, and they just go and execute it and get it done. Use your agenda or a calendar, but leave time for breaks and exercises, because you don't want to be working too much. Going outside, even if you see a green plant, like you take a walk and you down a hallway and you see a green plant, it has an effect on your brain close to stepping outside. He was a grade 9 student. They had done their schedule just using a Google Doc for me a couple of years ago, and something similar to that I think will help you stay on track. There's personal activities, there's time to eat, things like that. If you just let the day unfold, I don't think that this challenge will work out for you. I don't mean to be threatening, but just some students will keep up, and some students, unfortunately, will fall behind a little, and we all want everyone to get the best marks that they can by the end of this difficulty once we're back at school and seeing each other face to face. Understand which apps. There's a Zoom, a teleconferencing app. A con of Zoom is if you're using the free app, it limits you to 40-minute meetings for 3 people, and there's some ethical concerns about who are they sharing their private data with. They've eliminated that restriction during this COVID-19 crisis, but the lengthy meetings is a pay service. Google Meet and Hangouts, you've been given free access to that. It works nicely with Google Docs. It has a face-to-face meeting. The meeting, I'll try to record the classes so people can watch it later. You can send each other messages. You can have a meet up with your group. It should be free for you as a TDSB user. Slack, if there's a big complicated project, this is often done among a team at work. You can message, you can put all the work up there, you can chip away at it. It's sort of a project management app. And one last one, you might have some trouble staying on task. So, Serene removes distractions. It can block websites or applications. It can put a time limit, like, hey, you've got 30 minutes left to do your Google slide template, and it's something that can help people stay on task. Consider it if you know that this is an issue. Remember to follow business etiquette. Here's a bit of a meetup of the Star Trek cast, but when they posted this, initially they posted the meeting ID, and it turned out it was a public meeting that was held every week. And one thing that happens on Zoom is people Zoom bomb meetings. That is, they'll show up at meetings that are supposed to be private, so don't share the information if you're at work, and there's a private meeting happening. Create the waiting room, which means that the moderator has to approve everyone who enters, or put a password on it. Otherwise, the meeting can be disrupted. And remember to have good professionalism. Look and listen attentively. If you're just on your phone, people notice that, you'll get called out. You want to take notes, but don't be disengaged during a meeting, and follow professional attire, right? Or at least look like you doing that. I just wanted to talk to you a bit about how e-learning works, and one of the facts is that students that tend to be high achieving are more likely to succeed at e-learning. Well, the corollary to that is that who's less likely to achieve well in e-learning? It's sometimes those that don't have the best study habits. So just because you've started to do e-learning doesn't mean that you'll automatically get good study habits. You have to build those yourselves, and you're still developing the skills to work at home. They tend to have a lower pass rate than normal courses because you're developing those skills. So understand, part of this is to help you develop your skills so that you are a better worker. And states like Massachusetts, where students check in regularly as part of their e-learning, have a higher success rate than schools where you just stream content and it's your job to watch it and complete the assignment. So ask a question, send an email, advocate for yourself. If you don't understand, ask for clarity. I'll probably be creating some opportunities to sort of check in, to do something, but I think it's important to still have this interaction between teacher and student, because it's been shown some of the states where there's no interaction between the student and teacher don't do as well. And I would say, understand the distractions and what can happen. People have difficulty if they do a whole day of working at home. The biggest difficulty is then, getting ready for their home life. So hopefully with the time commitment, this won't apply to you, but understand that there's people get lonely and then they want to send messages. There's distractions at home. Sometimes it's hard to be motivated when you're not in an office setting. So understand the distractions that affect you and plan for them. So, for example, make time to touch base with your friends for a few minutes. If there's distractions, like don't work in the same room as the TV. If you need to stay motivated, maybe you want to think, what do I want out of this? Write that down. Put that in a place where you can see it, where you can see exactly what's important to you, and it'll help to remind you to be on task. Or maybe use that Serene app. So hopefully some of these tips will help you go through the e-learning process well. Use Google Meets appropriately, please. Give it a shot. Download it onto your app or iPhone, or go through Academic Workspace. And have a good weekend.